Hi guys, just want to talk to you over stats or this video on your kickoffs. Hope all of you get to listen to this. So the whole thing is just allowing each other space. That's the biggest thing on kickoff, and just making sure that you dominate the first opportunities of play. Although the ball's getting shifted by Robbie down here, it's a great example of when three players utilize a good amount of space in between each other. If you look earlier through the video stat, you'll see that we had Darian on the blind. We need to always have that available in our game, just in case the man who picks the ball up from the breakdown is also looking at maybe sniping through the blind side. Another issue that we're going to be talking about during this video analysis is the pocket man role and how he sometimes abuses space from the other three attacking players. This is a good example of where a player receives the ball not directly behind the breakdown, but at an angle, first receiver, kind of 15's angle, and then has to push out these three attackers, and you end up finding these three attackers trying to attack in a 15-meter space, and it just becomes kind of irrelevant. I think Paul passed the ball to Shane there, where it should have just been, rather just take it into contact, which is a waste of our time, to be honest with you. So over here, that this person coming across, try and not do that. I think there's enough, or I think there's only space for those three attacking players that are coming through there. Another scenario now, or a different situation, is once we've created a breakdown on the edge of the field, the pocket man now can use a little more space because you have the whole stretch of field to attack with. Situation comes in is when we create a breakdown that's a little bit inwards or a little bit inside of the field, and we haven't really utilized the whole width of the field, and that is where the pocket man needs to adjust his setup in order to allow the three attacking players enough time and space with the ball. So a good example here, when we've abused the field, the pocket man now works at a first receiver role, and he shifts the ball to these three players. And if you look at the field, they roughly have about 30-35 meters of space to work with. Kickoff receiving was of good quality for this session. This is a good example here, again, just coming back to that pocket man situation. So we've got three guys around the ball, which is very good. The pocket man now works at a first receiver 15s kind of format. And if you pause it there, or if you look at it there, those three players outside of the first receiver don't have much space to work with. Whereas if that first receiver kind of put himself in a pocket position to assist the scrum half picking up the ball on a blindside option, maybe to support that scrum half who picks and goes, we need to change our lining up in certain situations. So now, that was a bad decision. This decision over here, we've abused the field. Pocket man now moves in a first 15 kind of receiver role, and this is okay because now we allow the three attacking players outside of him roughly half the field, which is 30-35 meters worth of field. Gives them space, gives them time to work with the ball, and allows them to see opportunities. We're also going to be discussing the switch and how we need to change that slightly in our movement. If we look here, boys, as this man goes to ground, I don't know if the stat's going to go that long, but there's three guys approaching the breakdown, which shouldn't be the case. If we've got a man with ball, need a cleaner, we need a scrum off, because the first receiver, the pocket man, now has to backtrack, and when he starts to backtrack, he's already out of the game. Another example of abusing space, we leave these three guys in such a small amount of space. Becomes a little bit difficult to try and get ourselves over the go forward, or allow them enough space to make good decisions in the game. Another good example of where we utilize the field though, and now the pocket man now comes into a first receiver role and not necessarily a pocket role. Darian, I want you to look at, I know this is you, I remember this kickoff, I want you to try and look at staying up on your feet and moving away. We had forwards on Friday, last week Friday, working on the release of the player kicking off on the ball and looking to utilize space and attack space hard. So I want you not just to crumble, but I want you to move away from the contact situation and try to get us some more meters. Also very important to look at the guys that are off the ball. So the other half of the team that are working on the field, try to look at your work rate off the ball. Are you getting into enough depth? Are you working hard enough to make sure that you are in a better position than what you are currently at? Here's a perfect example, boys, of a pocket man. So that first receiver should have been rather in a deep pocket situation to allow the three attackers on his left-hand side more space. We get a bit claustrophobic here, we get a bit tight. Paul ends up running literally into the same channel as Darian. We're wasting our time in those situations. But on the flip side, you know, if we were to give each other more time and space, you would end up with this scenario. So 3 players with more than half the field to work with, a lot of things can change and a lot of things can happen with decision making. I think this is a good example of how we need to work. We need to have those 3 players with enough time and space to work with the ball. I want to talk over here about the switch. Remember that a switch in 7s is a completely different idea than the switch in 15s. Both players need to be working into the same direction. So Paul and Darian should be working together at a 45-degree angle, where Paul works at a complete 90 to make the switch with Darian. We need to still sell that switch, and we need to make it still an option to maybe draw and pass and give your support player an option out wide. That's the reason why both players work together in the same direction before the late switch actually happens. Scenario here, we've abused the space of the field and we allow the players more time and space with the ball out wide. So we set the ball up over here, man on the blind, which is a great option. So pocket man also needs to have this decision. So over here, if you look at the scenario, Robbie could pick the ball up, look at blind because he has Mark as a supporter. But at the same time, if he just plays the normal static game, not static, but if he plays the normal game pattern where we need to create momentum, you allow those 3 attacking players time and space together. Then in this situation here, we need all 4 players trying to abuse space. So the pocket man now shifts into a 15s format positioning where he kind of simulates himself into a situation of being a fly half. Whereas in other situations where we don't abuse the space of the field, the pocket man needs to move himself into a simulated position of being directly behind the breakdown. So we need to work on those decision-making scenarios. See, so over here, good example of us abusing space for our outside guys. We give these 3 guys the ball, but they receive the ball in between the 15 and the touchline. We can't expect our teammates to use space wisely when we're confining them into a smaller area. This situation would then force Paul, who receives the ball, to then just make the decision and go into contact, which is a waste of our time because now we have speed on the outside, but we're not using them. I know for the drill, we just simulated drawing and passing, but that necessarily wouldn't happen in a real game situation. Over here, Paul, I think I need to ask you also to try and stay on your feet and work on the technique that we worked on Saturday. I know I mentioned to you at training, once you land, it's the release, the spin. Always look for options to create extra momentum. So if we look at it again, Shaney, if he released, there was a good twist. Paulie, in that situation, you stay on your feet, you peel away from the lift, and you look at options. I think Eddie thought you were going into contact there, so that's why he was so close. Communication is also an important part. But now, a good example there, guys. We shift the ball wide. We give those 3 guys a good opportunity to attack space. We give them time with the ball in hand, which is so important. Once we've set that up, I don't think we've hit the edge of that field over there. I want you to see now the first receiver, the pocket man, going into a fly half position as if he was playing 15s. Once he's made that first part, we have 3 players, which is that pass being made there, and then this next part, all confined into a smaller space. It feels claustrophobic. It looks claustrophobic. And in a rugby world, if a rugby commentator was talking over this, he would say, you know, it just looks like they're shoveling into an irrelevant space. Or the coach would just say, you're shoveling shit. So we need to really look at that, make sure that that pocket man makes the right decision for the team in making sure that he allows his team time and space. Scenario over here, pocket man goes into a first 5-8 positioning. We're not in position. Paul steps away to give space, which was a good decision. Here is a good example. So pocket man goes into pocket, shifts the ball, and he allows those 3 players nice space to work with. Good example there. Comes into pocket again, shifts it, gives these 3 guys nice time and space with the ball. That was a good example. Pressure on the pocket man, has time because he's right in the pocket, gives himself time, goes into contact again. Not a problem. Redefines the offside line. Good option, yeah, good decision because they saw the space. Not a problem. Just remember, when we are playing more competitive teams and when we don't have only 10 players on the field, defensively, that won't necessarily happen. So I need you to look at being patient enough to understand that the difference between this training session and a real game situation is that opportunities will not happen straight away. So gents, just have another watch at this and just look at the positioning of your play from depth when you are not on the ball, and also look at that options of giving our outside 3 players enough time and space, and if you are a pocket man, to ensure that you do not abuse the space for your teammates. See you Friday.